Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fourmation podcast. We are back with episode 8 and we're all in a pretty good mood this morning. Football is back on our screens. The Premier League is back. We've got lots coming up for you. We're going to look back at the 2 games that we've already had so far, and we're going to look ahead to the first weekend. It's been over 100 days now, but we're excited. We've finally got some football to talk about rather than transfer rumours and all of that. It is back. But first of all, I introduce ourselves as we always do. I'm George, and today I'm joined by
Harry,
Sam,
and Devon.
Yep. So we are back. Like we said, the football is back, and the Premier League, of course, it returned with its first 2 games last night. And in the first game, it had to return with some controversy. It was Aston Villa against Sheffield United. It finished 0-0, goalless, but really it shouldn't have finished goalless. Does someone want to step up? Devon, you were covering this game for PILA Sports. Do you want to step up and explain?
Big Sheffield United fan as well.
For anyone who didn't manage to catch this game, which, to be honest, if you didn't, where were you? What were you doing last night if you didn't watch it? Do you want to explain what happened and why there's been so much controversy after this game?
Yeah, I don't know if people in Sheffield missed it because of the reopening of Medwall, which I don't think they would have. But where do I start? Aston Villa had the first 10-15 minutes. They were very bright, really questioned Sheffield United's backline. But then after the drinks break, which is a new introduction because of the coronavirus situation, I'm not sure what that kind of does. I think it's just maintaining the water levels because the lack of match sharpness. But the 42nd minute, Ollie Norwood lifts the ball into the area. Nyland forgets that he's a goalkeeper, I think. It were a mixture of not being able to catch the ball. I think he knocked into Conser and he's fell back over the line, but somehow tried to keep it keep it in play, and ultimately failed. The ball
definitely failed.
Pressed the ball against the post. John Egan's going mental. Sheffield United starts celebrating. Even the Villa fans, you saw Villa players, not fans because there were no one there, but Villa players were just strolling back to the halfway line. Even Jack Grealish had his head down. You could tell that Villa knew that had gone in. But as all eyes veered towards Michael Oliver, nothing was given. He pointed to his watch saying nothing, pointed to his ear saying nothing, and they was outraged. And I think the main difference is that normally he'd have had about 5,000-6,000 Sheffield United fans on his back after that, and Villa fans going, well, and instead they were all at home, especially on the screens. Just what a mess up it has all been.
Yeah,
go on, George.
It was fairly baffling to watch, wasn't it? Sam, obviously everyone could see watching at home with the replays when they showed them that it was over the line. So why did VAR not intervene, do you think?
I'm definitely the wrong person to ask about this because I, with a lot of people, have no idea why they didn't look at it. It just makes you think, what is the point of referees now? Like, it feels like so many of the key decisions are taken out of their hands because of these VAR rules that to a lot of people don't make any sense. And it's, when that moment happened, it was like, yeah, now the Premier League's back. Now that we've had a technology mishap, now the Premier League's back. And it was certainly very strange to see with goal line technology, which has actually been perfect, really. It's been the best implementation of technology in football, to be honest. And this is the first time we've seen a mishap from there. So I'll let that department off this time. But again, VAR just taking the decision out the referee's hand. You've got to feel for Michael Oliver a little bit. That he's, that's all he can do. The watch hasn't told him it's a goal. That's all he can do.
Yeah, I think the fact that the technology has never failed even if Oliver himself, before checking his watch, thought it was in, he surely has to trust what his watch is saying after it's proven so reliable. Do you think that's right, Harry? Is that something he has to do?
Oh yeah, they put a statement out at the end of the game saying, "Well, guys, this is the first time in 9,000 matches. I think that includes tennis as well. I might be wrong in that anything has ever gone wrong." So no one should blame Michael Oliver, because if his watch has told him that it's not gone in, sometimes your eyes deceive you either way. So he's got to trust what's been given. I agree that VAR should have stepped in, and I thought at the time that it couldn't because of some sort of overruling thing. But when I was listening to the game, apparently it can overrule the GDS system. So I don't quite know what's gone on now. I don't know why they've not quite picked it up. But yeah, we all know it should have been given, but apparently at halftime the watch did say it was a goal. So the watch did work eventually, but it worked for the second half as well. But there was nothing weirdly enough. There was nothing quite as controversial in the second half.
There was some discussion on Twitter as well. A few fans suggesting that what Villa should have done, maybe morally and in the term of being good sportsmen, or being good sportsmen, they should have allowed Sheffield United to dribble the ball in like they were allowed to do at Ellen Road last year. But do you think, Devon, because it was the technology which failed this time rather than Villa doing something wrong like Leeds did before, do you think that means Villa don't have to do that?
I think it's different situations really. The Villa versus Leeds one was because one of the players was down, and then they carried on, and Bielsa told them to. Whereas this one is that technical fault, and it just depends what your morals are like, I suppose, as a team. If that point kept Villa up, I don't think they'd be complaining. Whereas if they went and scored and went down by a point, I don't think they'd. I don't think they'll mind in the long run. But especially with Villa's running, I think they'll take a point all day. Even though they could have won it in the first half and the second half. It was just that after that initial 10-15 minutes were gone, Villa looked out of it.
Yep. So as we said, it started off with a 0-0, which maybe should have been a victory for Sheffield United. But the second game last night was between two of the big six, as they're called. Arsenal, of course, haven't lived up to that this year, but they're still in the big six. And Man City restarted with a win. It's easy to say that they got off with a win, isn't it? Because it's been so long, but it's not a new season. They restarted with a win, and David Luiz for Arsenal was the man in the headline. He had a stinker, didn't he, Sam?
Oh my God, it was awful. I mean, David Luiz has got a bit of a reputation of, making these sort of just terrible mistakes, giving away penalties, getting sent off, making these mistakes. But this was just like a once in a lifetime terrible performance from him. And with his contract running down, the date for that clause to be added on, that 1 year extension to be added on, coming thick and fast. Arteta said his opinion of him has not changed after the game, but I find that hard to believe because it was just an abysmal performance from Luiz. So I don't see him continuing as an Arsenal player into next season.
Do you think Arteta maybe feared? Do you think he saw this performance coming, hence why he put him on the bench? Or do you think he just knows that he's a loose cannon and things can go wrong all the time?
I think he's been touted as more of a leader in the Arsenal dressing room, but again, that's just like Carragher said after the game. That's maybe just because of his age, and sometimes experience is overrated. It's all good having experience, but you've got to lead by example, and he certainly didn't do that yesterday.
Kevin De Bruyne, of course, was very impressive for Man City again. Do you think that showed just how vital it is that they are able to keep hold of him? He's been touted with a move away because of the Champions League ban, but how important is it that they keep hold of him? Harry, what do you think about that?
He's a man that can get into any midfield in world football. He makes the game look easy. And once again, despite the fact that his pass to Sterling wasn't the best, once again he puts it in that sort of dangerous area, forcing David Luiz to make a decision. He makes the wrong one, and Sterling's in there, scores a penalty. There was never really any doubt. He's key to that. He's key to that midfield. Yes, he was injured for the majority of last season. They still won the title. But this season, once again, he's been one of their star players, one of the league's star players as well.
I mean, directly involved in 25 goals this season. I think that just shows how key Kevin De Bruyne is. And, the biggest thing that's going to come from this, whether Man City get this Champions League ban, is the future of players like Kevin De Bruyne. Because I think if this 2-year ban is kept, then I don't see him staying. He's just too good to not be in the greatest club competition.
Devon, do you fear for Arsenal for their final? Well, they've got 9 games left. Do you fear for them? 2 injuries. There seems to be a bit of, I don't know whether it's unrest. Maybe that's bad of me to say, but not a good start. Do you fear for them for the final few games?
I think you hit the nail on the head there. No shots on target in the whole of that game. Obviously, you played against Man City. You've got to have a bit of realism. But still, Norwich City managed to get 3 shots on target against them back in August.
September.
September. So it shows that City are vulnerable, and we've seen that in the past, where because of the injury to Laporte and Fernandinho going back to centre half, that City have allowed more shots onto the goal from outside the area, but they just didn't get the ball into Aubameyang enough. Really, I didn't really see him become that opponent feature up front that we've seen all season, really, and it looks like his head's already at his next move, because I don't think anyone would like to stay at Arsenal, wants to move to Arsenal, apart from lower Premier League sides. And I think this whole Arteta's got a massive job on his hands to make Arsenal great again, because they look years off it.
So
I think
go on, Sam.
I was just gonna say I think Arsenal are in real danger of slipping out that top 6 for on a permanent basis. If they lose their key attacking players like Aubameyang, Lacazette, then there's nothing in that team, and they always seem to crumble against the top 6. I mean, they're winless in their last 26 Premier League away games against the top 6. So I think that just shows that. I know it's very football fan to say this, but they've got no bottle. They've got no leaders.
I think that's very fair to say. That record was staggering to see. I mean, it's not a surprise because, as you say, we've seen so many occasions when they don't turn up against the big teams, but that really is something that they'll need to fix. Devon, what were you going to add? Sorry, I cut in there.
I think Arsenal, you said top 6 earlier, and you did the quotations for them. Yeah. But I think they've lost that status now. I think Wolves have more than justified the last 2 seasons that they're starting to make that transition into that side. Man United are starting to become the big club again, and that's solidifying that 5, and it's that one spot where that's been very open, and Everton are getting stronger and arguably not as consistent as Arsenal at times, but they're slowly making that way, especially with Ancelotti in charge. Even Burnley, who have more wins than Arsenal, are starting to become a better, more solid Premier League side than Arsenal. And they're just in the past of Wenger still. I think we saw, especially like with Man United, towards the tail end of Sir Alex Ferguson's reign, you could tell that things are not going to be great straight away, and the same with Arsenal, and they're not really prepared for it as well. They've thrown Emery into the mix, where he had a squad that Sevilla squad's much stronger than the Arsenal squad that he had, and the cohesiveness of Sevilla he couldn't bring to Arsenal, and that's why he failed. And I think although Arteta could be a good manager in the long run, whether he'll be given the patience and the time to really overhaul the squad, that's the main question here.
I think they need to hit the restart button though, and just have a massive overhaul, because Liverpool did that, Chelsea did that when I think when Leicester won the league and Saints finished 5th, I think Liverpool came like 8th or 9th. They do need to just hit that restart button, because say it takes them 3 years to get into the Champions League and they do that restart. By that time, Aubameyang will be 34, Lacazette will be 32 or 33, and they'll be past their peak anyway. I'd say this summer, just cash in on Aubameyang if they can, because it'll be the last time you can get quite a big, not a big fee, but a 30-40 million pound fee, and try and bring those Nketiahs through, because Nketiah at the start, before David Luiz came on, I think he was a bright spark against Eric Garcia, and I think he got in behind a couple times. For me, if I was an Arsenal fan, I'd sort of not cling on to that top 6, top 4 hope for the next couple of years, and just allow a restart to happen, because with a lot of teams, you have to go back before you go forwards, and I think that's what the Gunners need to do.
They've got a lot of hangers on and passengers in the side, especially players like I think there's some kind of loyalty issue, if you can call it that, because they've give Özil more time than he probably deserved there. Jenkinson's an example where he's not been that great, but they held on to him a few seasons too long, and now obviously he's moved on. But it's just an example of that. Arsenal keep hold of players that they shouldn't keep hold of too long, and even like with the Pepe situation, no matter if he'll turn out to be a good player or not, it's a sign of that Arsenal are just having to spend as much money as they can in little bits and spurts, because they can't keep up with the quality of the players. They've just got to fork out for one player, but they can't build a team around him.
Harry, is that your dog barking in the background there?
Yeah, that's why I'm muted. That's why I'm muted my mic, because there's lightning and thunder just crashing down left, right, and centre. And I didn't know if the mic could pick it up, so that's why I muted myself. I think it's stopped now, so I think she might have quietened down. You do get bad weather in the south. You do get bad weather in the south.
I couldn't hear any thunder and lightning. I could just hear the dog, but it was not a distraction at all.
Maybe they really, really dislike Arsenal, and they just want to hear the opinion known. I mean, they might have to bring dogs into the stadium just to fill the Emirates more next season.
Okay, so we've discussed the opening 2 games ahead of the first proper weekend now. Every Premier League team has 9 games to go, so it's time to look ahead at that weekend. It really is going to be a feast of football. There's 4 games, of course, on Saturday, 3 on Sunday, but first on Friday, the 2 biggest games of the weekend. The biggest will kick it off at 6 o'clock. Norwich against Southampton.
Oh, yes.
I don't think this is going to get the biggest viewing figures of the weekend, but you never know. This is going to be a big game, particularly for Norwich. I'm not going to try and talk up our hopes of survival. I'm going to ask Devon first of all. Devon, how important could a win be for Norwich in this game?
I think the win is what they need. A win is what they could certainly get. I think they have, the Tottenham result in the friendly, even though it's a friendly and they weren't proper referees there and that. I think that'll give them a big boost. And it seems from what I've been reading that Norwich are in a good place at the minute. And if they could, they've always had that the nice, attractive football that they've tried to play. It's just been 1 or 2 tweaks of the defence, and not being probably as consistent up front as they'd like to have been. And if they'd have sorted this problem out earlier, they might have been in a better position to say, "Look, we're not out of this." But I think you probably don't want to ask me or Sam these questions. I think it's you two that need to get the gloves off.
That's what I was expecting, to be honest. I sort of skipped over this. Hoping that you two would.
I'd like to pose a question to Harry and see if bring I'm going to say Southend then. Southampton. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, how much of an effect will his attitude have been on that Southampton squad? Or do you think because Hasenhutl's pulled the trigger and be strict him with the captaincy, do you think everyone
Wait,
would be...
he hasn't killed him, has he?
He's dismissed of him.
Pull the trigger.
From his quotes,
Pull
he seems
the
very
trigger.
angry. Let's put it
I think PS when he's played, and I think he's sort of known that he's going to leave in the summer. I think he's a fantastic professional from what we've seen, and I think he'll sort of understand why he can't be. I think he'll be frustrated because I think he'll still give everything, but I do think that it's the right decision to make. And giving it to Ward-Prowse, I think that's something that he's dreamed of as a kid coming through the Southampton academy. So I'm glad they've given it to him, although I might have given it to Jack Stevens because I think he's more of a captain. But going into this game, I'm not massively confident because I'm going to say this now. I don't think we're going to go down. I think we're 5 or 7 points above the relegation zone, and we're not going to get Europe, or it's very unlikely. So we're sort of in the.
So you don't need points then on Friday.
See, we don't need points, but with Shane, I think Shane longs it down.
Already making the excuses.
When if Che Adams comes in, he's going to want to prove himself. This has been an 100-day pre-season, so it's going to be an interesting game to see where both sides are at. So I think for me, it'll be a draw.
Yeah, You said you wanted me to back to Harry, so I will. I agree that I think Saints will pose a threat to us because I think they showed in the first game in December. Me and Harry watched it on Amazon. I think it wasn't popular in the sports bar, so we had to go somewhere else to watch it it was on your TV, Harry. But,
yeah.
That night, Norwich were beaten by 2 set pieces, and Ward-Prowse will, of course, play on Friday night. But I do think if we can play our way, like we said, Dev, and Jamie Carragher mentioned in the build-up last night that he thinks behind closed doors, the teams who like to keep it on the floor and play it nicely might benefit. So if that is to be the case, then hopefully we can profit. And like you said, we have to get a win because the gap at the bottom isn't getting any smaller without us picking up results ourselves. So I think it's going to be pretty vital that we do kick it off with a win.
I agree with your point. I think Villa showed that last night that they actually did get the ball down and play some quite good football. And I think, they exposed Sheffield United, especially that Davis versus Egan battle, were very good. And you could probably see that with Norwich and take, examples if Pookie can get upside Stevens and really, kind of ruffle him before getting in behind and finishing one off. Norwich could do that. I wanted to bring attention to one other player that, it wasn't a goalkeeper. We'll keep that.
As was reported elsewhere. But...
Yeah, as reported in other podcasts. But Marco Stiepermann's back in training now. However, do you think he'll feature or not? Do you think it's too early?
To be honest, even if he hadn't have had the positive test, I wouldn't have had him in the 11. Although certain members of the Norwich fan base have said that he's been underused this year and that he hasn't been given enough time. I personally wouldn't have him in there, but I do think Farke does like certain abilities which Stiepermann brings. I don't think he will play, but he might feature on the bench because he's back in training today. So maybe he'll feature. I am glad that it wasn't Tim Krul, the goalkeeper, because our backup isn't particularly good. But
well, that's what you get when you wait till sources have been confirmed. Can we get a prediction out of you two boys?
I'm going to go 2-2. 2-2. It's going to be for me.
I think Norwich are going to win 2-0. I'm quite confident, actually.
All right, well, Sam, we're going to have to wait until Wednesday get relegated and Grimsby get promoted to do this little chat.
That's a long time away, I'm afraid.
So
it'll only be 2 seasons, no one knows. We might even be League 2 by then.
The later game on Friday night is Spurs against Manchester United. Spurs have got a lot of their assets, Kane, Sonny, Bergwijn. They are all
Sonny.
back.
He's on nickname basis.
Everyone knows him as Sonny, don't they? I don't know. They're
First
all,
time I've
Oh
heard
yeah,
it.
he does one career mode. He thinks his best mates.
they are all back from injury. Oh, come on, we're friendly with Tottenham. We played a friendly against them. Yeah, they're all back from injury. Will there be a big incentive for Mourinho to go out and win this one after his time at United? Sam?
Yeah, I think so. And it's two teams who were in very contrasting form before the break. Manchester United were unbeaten in 11. Tottenham didn't have a win in 6. So I think it's going to be big for Spurs to get off the ground running if they're really serious about getting back in those Champions League spots.
Devon, do you think it's exciting in this one that we could see Pogba and Bruno Fernandes playing together for United for the first time?
Exciting, yes. Just depends if they'll work together. I feel like if they're in a midfield three, they'll try and get in the same positions, because when Pogba's flourished, he likes to, drift into the areas that Bruno has seen himself in when Pogba was unavailable. And we've seen in the past, especially when Mourinho was there, he kind of restricted Pogba to the defensive roles, which, that's when he got the majority of his criticisms on the pitch. However, so I don't think they'd work together in that kind of midfield three, unless you restrict Pogba. So I believe Sam's got because we definitely didn't cut. So Sam, I believe you've got a contrasting opinion.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I don't think that Pogba will start against Spurs because of the long layoff that he's had, an extremely long layoff. So I think Ole will ease him back in. But I think going forward, I think most Manchester United fans will want to see them start together. I think as individuals, they're too good not to see them start together as in a midfield three with either McTominay or Matic as the holding midfielder, and they can sort of go forward, explore forward. I think Bruno Fernandes has been a brilliant signing for Manchester United. He's been involved in more goals than anyone in the team since he arrived. So I think with both of them, they've both got that creative spark. So I think it'll be really good to see them to play together.
And I think Man United fans are maybe dreaming of finishing in the top 4, winning the FA Cup, and also winning the Europa League, which we know is going to get back underway in August. Harry, do you think all of those 3 are likely, or do you think they should maybe lower their expectations a little bit, given it's Solskjaer's first full season?
I think top 4 should be their priority over everything, because their running, statistically speaking, is, I believe, the easiest. And compared to Chelsea, they obviously form doesn't matter, but their squad, now everyone's back fit, looks very, very strong. And with Tottenham, if Manchester United win this game, I believe they're 7 points clear of Tottenham. So Tottenham probably out of the Champions League race altogether. I think Europa League, for me, it's difficult because it's a one-legged tie. So anything can happen on a one-off game. So if they try and focus on that, it's probably, even though it's all the way in August, it's probably not the smartest thing. So I believe focusing on top 4 is that priority. Because if they get Champions League football, then everything else will sort of fall into place next season because more players want to join. The budget will be bigger because they're back in Champions League, meaning that there's more TV money and all that stuff that comes with the Champions League. So for me, top 4 should really be their priority, and it's the most likely thing that's going to happen out of all those as well.
So if we now move on to some of the games later in the weekend, on Saturday, the first game at lunchtime is Watford versus Leicester. This sees Leicester.
Really,
Nigel Pearson go up against the side where he won 2 promotions, and of course he also led them to the Great Escape in 2015. Not the Great Escape. There's been some more in the past, and there'll be another one this year.
You are on about Barnsley.
But it was a Great Escape in 2015. Do we think Watford have got a good chance at Vicarage Road?
they certainly looked more bright especially when Pearson came in. That obviously everyone's going to revert back to that 3-0 win over Liverpool. As the kind of point where it clicked, but then they followed that up with a 1-0 defeat to Crystal Palace, and that was disappointing. And the forms kind of fluctuate between, wow, Pearson's gotten firing, and that's the mistakes that we saw under at the start of the season. But I think it's going to be an interesting one. Both sides are desperate for wins. Watford need one because they're gunning to stay up, and Leicester need to maintain the form that they were showing towards the end of the before the play got halted. Even though Leicester did kind of fall off a little bit, but towards the last few games they started to play well again. It'll be interesting, but I think Leicester's probably got too much quality for Watford.
How vital, Harry, do you think Pearson's experience in this sort of situation, not just playing Leicester, but for the rest of the season, how important will that be to their chances of survival?
I think we've seen that so far before this point, in the fact of I look at all these teams in this sort of relegation battle, and they're the team that I would fancy getting points where they're not expected to. You see, I believe they beat Manchester United earlier in the season. They beat Liverpool obviously quite comprehensively 3-0 a few months ago before the break. They're a sort of team that, with those experienced heads such as Troy Deeney, they're going to grind out results. And I wouldn't be surprised here, if they're able to get a draw. Leicester, it's going to be, I think they're the team that's going to be helped most by this break, due to the fact they play a very energetic style and everyone's going to be fully fit, raring to go. But if this game's going to be quite tight due to the fact that I think Watford's fighting for survival. Leicester, they're going to get top four anyway. I think they're too far in front of the Man United, the Chelseas, to fall all the way down to fifth. So it's going to be a close game, I feel.
So that's just one of 4 games on Saturday. Like we said, there are some important games across the board on the weekend. We'll just touch on a few now. Brighton play Arsenal. Brighton obviously have been sucked into that relegation battle. West Ham host Wolves. West Ham, another team who look in trouble, don't they? Bournemouth are playing against Palace. That one on BBC One, so that one will get a big audience. You would have thought. Bournemouth, another team down there. But the one we're going to focus on today solely, most important probably this week. Well, maybe not the most important, but
it's Wolves West Ham.
is on Sunday evening, and that is the Merseyside derby between Everton and Liverpool. How relieved, first of all, do you think Everton fans will be that Man City did the business on Wednesday, so now the title doesn't rest on this game?
I think Everton would have actually, on a kind of flip note, loved to have denied Liverpool the title, because we're talking about previews, we're talking about basing it on what they were before the break. Anything can happen, and we've seen, like in the Bundesliga with Schalke, they came back and were absolutely awful, and even a few teams took a little bit of time to get going again, and Liverpool might be that. I think the main example is City. It looks dominant from the off again. Even after that first 10-minute of settling period, Man City looked back to the best. And I think if trends are set, I think Liverpool will do the same. However, we've had history with Liverpool and Crystal Palace before in title runnings, and messing up them games, so we'll not count it out until it's over. But I think Liverpool will probably come back stronger.
I think it would take quite something for Liverpool to blow it this year, but you're quite right. They have had trouble seeing it out before. Harry, do you think Liverpool will find it easier in this derby game without the hostile Goodison Park atmosphere?
It depends what their player mindset is, because a lot of players love that sort of atmosphere. Whether you're home or away, they thrive off that atmosphere. So it's going to be strange, obviously, because it's stereotypical for there be a lot of animosity in that stadium, both before kickoff when the buses are coming in and during the game. There's going to be nothing. It's going to be almost silent. So, do I think the Liverpool players are going to be affected? Probably not massively. I think it's the break between fixtures will have the biggest hit, and also the want of Everton to finally break such a historic run of games without winning at Goodison Park. So, for me, I think it's going to be another close. I think all the games recently are going to be quite close due to the fact that everyone's sort of in the same boat, is that their fitness isn't amazing, or at least the level of it was, and everyone doesn't want to start off with a loss.
I think it'll also depend on the selections as well. As we've seen so far, Man City surprisingly included Garcia, and hopefully he'll get back from his injury too. It was a nasty one. Villa went with Davis in their side, and a couple of youngsters on bench, and it'll be interesting to see if we saw people like Curtis Jones play for and start, and Harvey Elliott for Liverpool, or whether they'll just put out the full strength until they've actually confirmed it, and then integrate some of the youngsters. It's about fitness, who's fitter, and especially in them last 10 minutes when your legs are going. If it's that competitive edge of a Merseyside derby, both teams might have burnt out by then.
Yep, I think this one is one that we're all looking forward to. So we're going to quickly get some predictions. I'm just going to ask each of you, what score do you think it's going to be? Sam?
2-0 Liverpool.
Harry?
1-0 to Liverpool.
Devon?
2-1 Everton.
Ooh.
2-1 Everton. Oh, I agree with Sam. I reckon 2-0 to Liverpool. I'm actually going to be testing your knowledge of the Merseyside derby in the quiz very shortly. But before we do that, we're just going to quickly touch on a few games in the Championship, because that has survived the pandemic too. That is going ahead this weekend. And there's
Best league.
Say again?
Best league in the world, Championship.
And there are several enticing games taking place. It all kicks off on Saturday, and the early kickoff is a London derby. It's third against fourth, Fulham against Brentford. I think this one is televised too, should you want to watch it. Sam, do you think either of these sides stand any chance of closing the gap on the top two?
It's tough. I think Fulham are closer, but if they're really serious about it, they've got to win. I think West Brom are playing Birmingham, who have not been great. So if they don't pick up 3 points here against Brentford, then it could be a 9-point gap by the end of it. And for this game, it's really the battle of the attacking units. You've got Mitrovic, Bobby Reed, Tom Kearney versus Watkins, Ben Rama, and Mbeumo. So I think it'll be a really interesting game with two really goal-scoring focused teams going up against each other.
Do you think this could potentially be seen as a rehearsal for the managers for a future clash should they meet in the playoffs? Because if they don't finish in that top two, they're likely to finish in that top six, aren't they?
Yeah, I think they're, as Sam alluded to, they're the most prolific and exciting teams to watch in the Championship, especially, the BMW of Brentford. It's just, they're absolutely, mesmerising to watch, and especially Ben Rama. And we saw the skills that against Arsenal and how good he was in them two friendlies. But I think for them, the two sides, the playoffs is what they'll settle for anyway, because even though Fulham have got it in their own hands, because they do play Leeds, West Brom, and probably Cardiff, that's the hardest fixtures in that running. I think playoffs is pretty much settled. It's the final two, whether Forest and Preston will keep up with the pack. And out of all the sides, it's probably, if we get onto it, I know we're a bit strict for time, but Millwall, that little group, seems the most likely to break into that top six at the minute.
Yep, and Millwall on Saturday host Derby, who also their hopes aren't completely over. They're 5 points off sixth place. We've obviously got links to Derby going there for university. Devon, you were shaking your head. Do you not think they're in amongst that bunch? Do you think they're too far back?
Yeah, I think it's been a case of us like going to Derby that we've missed Frank Lampard, and by the time we leave, that's when and Mason Mount, obviously. But by the time we leave, Derby probably will still be in the Championship. They seem to just not get any further forward. They either have a really good start and then tail off, or they have a bad start and then get better. I think it's a bit too much for Derby. I think it's a bit too early as well. But you never know if Rooney can really get that experience in and make them level-headed, because they seem as sometimes they're a side that gets a bit too excited going forward and forgets the defensive duties. They're really going to rely on the heads of Rooney and Curtis Davis in this last run-in as well. But I think it's been an all right season for Koku, and next season, if they could build on it, depending on finances and obviously the situation with the FFP in the ground, whether they get any more backlash from that, I think next season that's where Derby need to build towards.
I think it's been a decent season for Derby. I think the loan players they had last season were their core, like Tomori, Wilson, Mount were their core. Tomori was player of the season, obviously. So to lose them instantly was always going to be tough. But I think, they've been inconsistent, been really poor away from home, especially. But I think he's done an all right job. But I don't, like Devin says, I think it's a bit too much for them this season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there is an equally interesting battle going on at the bottom. There are several teams who are at risk of going down. One interesting game this weekend is Hull against Charlton. Harry, you saw Charlton. Was it? I think they lost 4-0 to
4-0 to Huddersfield. Yeah.
Based on that day, and obviously anything that you've watched of them throughout the season, can you see them pulling themselves away from the battle at the bottom, especially with Lyle Taylor not being able to play or not choosing to play?
The issue, I was going to say, the issue is that against Huddersfield, a relegation rival, they weren't anything special, quite obviously, because of the 4-0 loss. They had a bright start, as many teams do, in the opening 10 minutes, and then fell away. And then I think Huddersfield made a couple substitutions in the second half, which really, really changed the game. But the problem is, Hull are another team where they lost Bowen, they lost Grzyski, and then they've plummeted through the table. So I think it's going to be quite a tight game, due to the fact that Hull, it's difficult to say they're in free fall due to the fact that we've had this 3-month break, so we don't know what could happen. But I think Lyle Taylor might have changed. I heard something recently about Lyle Taylor maybe reversing his decision, so that'd be interesting to see if that is the case. But I think it's going to be a tight game.
We've got a weekend of derbies here, haven't we? We've got Merseyside derby, London derby, Nigel Pearson derby, and now we have the battle at the out of contract derby. Hull have released their retirement list, haven't they? And they've lost five or four players? Eric Levi, Jackson Irvine, Kingsley, and Marcus Maddison won't be renewing his loan past the 30th of June. Also, Malik Wilkes will be going back to Barnsley, which might be a boost for them as well in that relegation battle. But I think Barnsley and Luton are probably the teams that are not favourable to come out of it. I think Hull are in a very worrying position. They're not. They can't buy a win at the minute. Even that Charlton, if we go back to, obviously we've been saying about it feeling like it's the first game of the season. If we could go back to that basis, Charlton were flying at the start, and if they could get, even when and Lyle Taylor got picked up an injury in that run, Macaulay Bonne took responsibility, and I think he got 8 goals in about 12 games. If he could pick up that form again, Charlton might be able to steer it away, and then everyone will be holding their hands up for Lee Bowyer. Whether the links will affect him to Birmingham, who knows? But I think out of the two, Charlton are probably in a better position, especially if Harry's right, if Lyle Taylor does revert his decision and play, Charlton probably the favourite out of the two to stay up.
Yeah, I've just checked it now. The Lee Bowyer 3 days ago rubbished the reports that Lyle Taylor's performed a U-turn over a refusal to play. So it's still up in the air whether it's true or not.
We're turning into the goalkeeper situation with the
I double check my facts though, and if I'm wrong, I'll say.
Right, okay.
Okay.
Hull and Charlton have an equal odds of going down now.
Yeah, very good point. There are some other games which are probably worthy of a mention. Devon, your team, Sheffield Wednesday host Forest. Do you think this is maybe a silly question because there are so many teams in that mix? Wednesday will just be hoping to see this season out and avoid the relegation battle and just start again in the summer, won't they?
Start again in the summer's definitely right. If we don't, I don't know what's happening at Wednesday because there's not been any news on the contract situations as of yet. As it stands, after June 30th, we only have 13 outfield senior players, and that's including Urigide and Alex Hunt, who are, I think, 20 and 21 respectively. If it's that, and you've got to bear in mind in that kind of bulk, we lose Kieran Lee, we lose Kieran Westwood, who hasn't really been playing anyway, but more importantly, we lose Stephen Fletcher, who is on his career high.
There's nobody better, is there?
There's nobody better than Stephen Fletcher. Not even Cuniguero from what we saw last night. That's the more worrying situation. Mix that with Forest, who have been strong and needed this break because of the little run that they had before the ending of the season, nearly. I think it's Forest to lose this one because Wednesday could surprise everyone and get a win from nowhere because that's how dodgy we are. But I think Forest have got that in the bag, unfortunately.
Yep, it promises to be a very exciting weekend indeed. We hope that you enjoy it and you can dedicate as much time as you can to watching football, as I'm sure we all will be, or maybe. But as I mentioned, the quiz...
Ed time.
The quiz this week is on Merseyside derbies, so reach for your notepads. If you've made it this far on the podcast, watching us or listening to us, then feel free to play along at home as well.
It's good work already.
So after 14 rounds, Harry opened up a lead last week again at the top. It was looking like it was getting tight, but Harry pulled it out the bag. This is round number 50, and it is the history of the Merseyside derby. And there's the Twitter app for those of you watching.
To be fair, that saves me editing it at the bottom there. I could just hold that up for the entire show.
Okay, question number 1. What was the score between the two sides in the reverse fixture at Anfield in December?
Oh.
We didn't mention this earlier. I made a conscious effort not to turn your attention towards it. What was the score between the two sides in the reverse fixture?
Shows that I was listening.
At Anfield, of course. There were fans there that day too, unlike there will be this Sunday. Question number 2. Who is the leading goal scorer in Merseyside derby history, having scored 20 in the fixture in total? One player. Was he red? Was he blue? Could be both, couldn't he? There have been players who crossed the divide.
Oh, red.
Did Iago Aspas score that many?
Question number 3. In which year was Everton's last Merseyside derby victory? I'm looking for the calendar year, not the season, the calendar year.
I saw a stat somewhere that's...
I can't remember if this is...
I almost looked this up before the quiz because I knew this would be a question, and then I didn't, and now I regret not doing my research.
Oh, he's cheating! He's cheating!
Do more than us, Harry.
Trying to think. I don't know.
I'm trying to think about the kit that I've got in my mind. I can't remember what year it's from.
Okay, question number 4 now. Who was the last player to score a Merseyside derby hat-trick? And what was the calendar year when he scored it as well? That's a
2 points?
two-pointer. So which player last scored a hat-trick? What year was it when he scored it?
This is a punt and half, this.
I'm going to tell you that in case you're writing him down, it isn't Luis Suarez.
No, it wasn't.
You weren't writing him down, but I don't think he ever scored a...
You should have said that. Someone else.
Huh?
I'm sure Harry's hearing towards it.
It's not him. It's someone else that I can't, because I think it was on like a soccer box or something ages ago. It was on some sort of program that I was watching, and I can't think for the life of me who it was. That's annoying.
This is a punt. Let's just say.
Final question is: how many times have Everton won at Anfield in the Premier League era? So that's in Premier League games only. How many times have they won at Anfield in the Premier League era? So they've had how many attempts? They must have had 27 attempts. No, 28, because this is the 28th season. More advertisement there, Devon. Okay,
I have to pay for this sponsorship.
The formation.
Question number 1 was, what was the score between the two sides in the reverse fixture this season? Harry, I'm going to start with you. What do you think the score was?
I put 5-2 to Liverpool.
Harry has said 5-2. Sam?
I said 3-1.
Sam's gone with 3-1. And Devon?
I've gone with 2-0, but I think that's the FA Cup game.
I think the FA Cup game was 1-0. What was the score? Sorry, I'm just reading my questions now. I don't know why I did that.
Yes, John. What was the score?
What I was going to say earlier on when we were discussing Norwich Saints, I said that people were maybe interested in another game on the night the reverse fixture was. That was Liverpool-Everton, and Harry clearly remembers it. It was 5-2.
Boosh.
5-2 to Liverpool.
Damn it.
Question number 2. The leading scorer in Merseyside derby history. Who is it? Sam, what are you saying?
I crossed out Gerrard and went Fowler.
You've gone with Fowler. Devon?
Oh, yeah, I didn't cross out Gerrard. I put
You've
Gerrard.
got Stevie G Force. And Harry?
Yeah, I put Steven Gerrard as well.
Stevie G.
Oh, it's going to be Duncan Ferguson.
I believe that Stevie G was 4th on the all-time list. Second was Everton's Dixie Dean. First on the list,
Ferguson.
Ian Rush.
Oh. Where was Fowler, do you know?
I didn't see Fowler near the... Maybe he was, but he wasn't. He definitely wasn't above Gerrard. Rush scored 13 in the league, 5 in the FA Cup, 1 in the League Cup, and another in the Charity Shield, which everyone cares about, don't they? But they all count. Question number 3. In which year was Everton's last Merseyside derby victory? Devon?
I can't remember the year of the kit, but I think it's 2015.
You've gone with 2015. Harry?
Oh, I went a lot earlier. I put 2007.
2007. Sam?
I went 2016.
2016. None of you are right, I'm afraid. It was 2010.
Oh.
10 years ago. They won 2-0 at Goodison Park with goals from Tim Cahill and Mikel Arteta.
Yeah.
So we've only had 1 point scored from 3 questions. Question number 4. Who was the last player to score a Merseyside derby hat-trick, and what was the calendar year? I'll start with Harry on this one. So there's two parts to the answer, the player and the year.
I had no idea, so I put Andrew Johnson in 2012. So I had absolutely no idea.
Sam?
I think you've got the year wrong.
I'm pretty sure. I thought it was Gerrard, but I'm not. I put 2011. Not sure.
Gerrard in 2011. And Devon?
Talk about throwbacks here. I've gone for Nikita Jelavic in 2013.
I can tell you one of you is correct. And
yes, Nikita.
Sam with Steven Gerrard, you were just 1 year out with the year. It was in 2012, but you still get 1 point for that.
I'll take it.
Question number 5. How many times have Everton won at Anfield in the Premier League era? This is in league games only. Devon, what do you reckon for this one?
It was question 5, so I've gone for number 5.
5, okay. And Sam?
I also went 5.
You went with 5 too. Harry?
I had no idea, so I just put 2.
Harry's gone with 2. He had no idea. That is a very, very good guess.
Oh, for God's
So
sake.
won twice.
Yes!
Oh, no!
Come on!
George, stop doing looks.
It was 2-1 in November 95 and 1-0 in September 99.
Damn it.
So Harry extends his lead.
6.
Yes. Come on.
So if I total these up,
You only need to do the top 2 scores.
you're quite right.
Oh.
Harry on 38. He's now got a 4-point lead over Sam on 34. Devon on 32. That one was presumably too hard this week. It was very
playoffs.
Huh? very low scoring. But we hope that if you were playing along at home, you probably weren't, let's be honest, but if you were, we hope that you scored better than these guys did. But that is all for this week's quiz. As we said earlier, it's going to be a very exciting weekend. We've had 3 months off, but it's like the opening day of the season. There's so much football on. Every single Premier League game is on, and there's lots of Championship games on too. So we hope you enjoy that, and we'll be back next week when there will have been a load more games to look back on and a load more to look forward to. So that will be good. Follow us at @the_Fourmation. Look at us on Facebook as well. And again, we'll advertise if you're a football writer and you want to get involved with the coverage over the next few weeks. Where should they go to?
PILA sports.com. Follow us on Twitter at PILA Sports, or follow us on Instagram at PILA_sports.
Yep, you'll find us on social media. Give us a follow, drop us a message if you fancy it. But as we said, enjoy your weekend, and we will see you next week. Thank you very much.